So I want to give a shout out to Reverend Chris Jackson, who was here last Sunday. Oh my goodness. I feel like he and I have some similarities. I got to live stream from California. Good morning. We are so glad you're here. Some of you are trickling back in, and it's like a reunion each Sunday just to see who comes back in. So Janet, I'm so glad that you're here this morning. So Chris Jackson gave the talk last Sunday. I got to live stream it from California with my family, and I was just like, I felt like he's my male counterpart. I felt like I was, watching my buddy up there. Like, I feel like he has this energy and this enthusiasm, and I was just loving it, and I am so glad he's back in town, and I am so grateful that everyone here gave him a warm welcome back. So thank you, Chris Jackson, and thank you always to all of those folks who are supporting our ministry so that we can thrive. Speaking of thriving, we just finished our annual fundraiser. Do you want to hear about it? We just just give a shout out if you contributed to it. Just give a wave. Woohoo! Thank you. We had people donate anywhere from $5 to $3,000. A number of people donated $1,000, $300, $100, and we fell short of only one goal. One of my goals was that and it was just fun. It's not like we needed to meet it, but it was just going to be fun. But one of the goals was that for our 100-year anniversary, which is this whole year we're celebrating, and we're going to be celebrating it into next year, that we would have 100 contributors, even if it was $1, whatever, but just 100 humans that would contribute. We got up to 58, which is really great. And guess how much those 58 individuals raised collectively? Our goal was $10,000, and we were trying to make the goal easy. $16,772. Which is awesome. We've already purchased little sink extenders and little step stools for the kids to be able to access the bathroom. We're getting changing tables put up. We've got new chairs for the kids' room. We're doing things in our community center to uplift the space and to make it work. So thank you to everyone who contributed whatever they could in their hearts. So thank you so much. And I think it's closed. Isn't it closed, Mark? So I don't think you can contribute anymore, but it might still be up online. So if you feel like you missed out and you want to be a part of it and you want to do anything, you can probably still do it. It's still open because we were busy Christmas caroling. We didn't get it closed yet. So I also want to remind you of that remembrance service. You probably heard the announcement, but there is a remembrance service happening this coming Saturday. And I have wanted to do this service for quite some time, and we're going to finally be able to do it this year. So with that remembrance service, you can honor anyone who has passed in the last year, or anyone who has passed at any time. This is just a sacred time to come together. Maybe you feel like you haven't gotten to fully process with people, or maybe your culture's way of processing just isn't enough for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, okay, we had a one moment memorial, and now that's done. Or maybe it happened a long time ago, and you just want a way to connect again and to be present and to fully experience that love and that connection with others. So we're going to be doing it. It's hybrid. So for those of you online, you can join us online as well. We're connecting with other ministries to do this. So we'll have the Zoom room open. It won't be live streamed because it's going to be very intimate and beautiful, and bring your tissues and whatever else you want to, your tissues and your tea with you. But you can join virtually if you'd like to. So you're asked to bring a photo of your loved one or your loved ones, and it's going to be in the Fillmore Chapel next Saturday at 3 p.m. And you can register for that on our app. Go to OOS and go to announcements, and you can click on that, or you can register on our website. So it's going to be a very, very sacred experience, and all you need to do is show up with your tissues, your tea, and a photo. And that can be on your phone, or it can be a physical photo. There is an invitation, but this is the last Sunday to let us know. If your kids want to be involved at all in the Christmas Eve service, that's 5 o'clock here in this sanctuary, you need to email unityvillagechapel@gmail.com today and go ahead and make sure that we know you would like to participate, because that's the amount of time you're going to need. And so far, I don't know that we really have anyone that has said they're going to participate. So it may just be Georgia and Raina, or it may just be an adult experience. So if you want to, your kids, your grandkids, a child that you spend a lot of time with, make sure to let them know. And then Michael Singer. If you have been around for the last little while, you know that we have a Michael Singer book we were just studying, and some of us have been deeply, deeply moved by that book. So what we're going to be exploring the possibility of is in this next year, hosting a deep, deep experience of transformation and community process work with myself and Reverend Brenda, who is one of our ministers that serves online in the Zoom room each Sunday. There are a lot of people who have said, I don't want this work to end. I need to do more with this. So this is going to be a high commitment group. It's not a light thing. It's not a fluffy thing. It's not a maybe I'll go, maybe I won't. This is a deep work group. You're going to be sharing deep things. We're going to be really diving into the process. And it's going to be a combination of a group experience once a month, and then also setting up spiritual counseling appointments with myself or Reverend Brenda for a second meeting a month, and then also having a partner to do some process work a third time a month. So there's a lot to it. It's probably going to be about an 8-month experience for that once a month, and it will take a commitment. But if you're interested in that, we're going to get a form up so that you can sign up. But I just wanted to give you a preview and a heads up. If you're really chomping at the bit and you want to make sure you don't miss that announcement, you can always email us at unitywillagechapel@gmail.com, and you can have that experience. Also, anytime in this sanctuary, if you need to have an adult break or you need space for kids to run around, anything like that, just know that the bookstore is also open. So you can go to the bookstore with your little ones. We used to live stream in, it's not called the bookstore anymore, it's called the Fillmore Cafe. We used to live stream in there. We don't have that set up right now, but we are working on getting our family room set up, and that's in our UVC space, which is in Building 400, and we're going to have a TV screen in there that live streams the service, and just a cozy space for parents and families so that you can bond and feel relaxed. But just know that you can also relax in here. It's welcome, you're fine, and we are so glad that you're here. So with that, I usually don't do announcements right before the talk, but there was just so much to say. And if I haven't said it yet, I'm Rev Erin. I'm the lead minister here, and it is my honor to be a part of this spiritual community with us today. So, hello, Zoom room. Are you ready? Hello, Facebook. Tell me if you're ready, folks. We are here to engage in the practice. Today is the second Sunday of Advent. In Unity, the Sundays of Advent go like this. The first one is faith or hope. And the reason it's confusing in Unity is that we haven't really decided. You know, some spiritual practices call it hope. Some spiritual practices call it faith. In Unity, we think of hope as a vision not committed to. And so we put our commitment to the hope. So what is hope when you stand with it and you say, I'm going to be a part of making that happen? It turns into faith. And faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the ability to shape substance. That's what Charles Fillmore said. So we kind of, you might be in some Unity centers and you'll hear it called hope, and you'll be in some that you hear it called faith, and it really doesn't matter. It's what works for you right now. But when we talk about hope and faith, and we talk about that Sunday, which was the initial first Sunday of Advent, that's part of the spiritual process, is to step into our power to create, to step into our faith. So that brings us to this Sunday in Advent, which is Peace Sunday. Peace Sunday. So what is peace about? We get to have a beautiful meeting with a lot of parents, families, last night in our UVC community space to talk about creating a parent village, to talk about what the needs are of families in today's culture, in today's world, and pioneering a group of individuals that would then branch out and host others to look at families supporting families. Because you can imagine, if you are a parent or a grandparent or a human on this planet, that it's an interesting time, as it has probably always been, to parent young ones. Even if those young ones are in the middle of high school, right? It's an interesting time. And one of the things that I've noticed about parenting the most is that peace is critical. In one of the bits that we covered in our meeting last night, it said that something like over 90% of a child's brain development happens, and I can't remember the facts. I think it was before they're 3, before they're 4. Hi, Lily. Hi, little Lily Bear. She's like, yes, it's developed. But definitely by 4 or 5 years old, their brain development, it's an incredible amount of development that happens there, right? But for that development to be nourished and to be have adults that are fully present to it, right? We need to be at peace. We need to have peace in our hearts, in our minds. We have to be grounded. And we're living in interesting times, aren't we? We're living in very interesting times. I know that the first day that I had to be present to the transition with my little one of going to preschool rather than being with her amazing miracle of at-home love and care that the beauty of this community has afforded my family, that was the day of the Texas incident. And it was really difficult to wake up to that in the same moment, to get it that this is the time to make the shift into the next experience. And then within the same 2-hour time span of realizing that shift needs to happen now, to hear the news that we all heard about Texas. It's the kind of stuff that can bring you to your knees, right? If you're a parent in this day and age and you consciously go into the knowing that it is your divine appointment to consciously choose to bring a child onto this planet, you're making one of the most courageous steps and, in my view, one of the most clear acts of faith that could be made. The perceiving power of the mind linked with the ability to shape substance. Not a hope, but a determination to create something. So we all have things that bring us in and out of peace all of the time. And the cost of not being at peace is great. Because when we are not at peace and when we act and we express from that place, what we do essentially is lift something up on an altar to share it with others, because that's what we do when we're expressing ourselves, right? So we are lifting it up. We're lifting up that action or those words or whatever it is that's not at peace. Even if we think we're not, even if it's through our depression or if it's through our rage, whatever it is, we're lifting that up and we're placing it on the altar. And then from that altar, people eat. From that altar, people drink. From that altar, people learn. From that altar, people experience. And based on our own internal sense of peace and our own mindfulness practice, our own internal grounding, we don't get to decide, do we? We don't get to say, just like a parent, I want them to learn from these parts of me, but not these, right? We don't get to decide, right? I got this beautiful book for my father last year. It's called Storyworthy. I've shared about it before, but you get to pick questions, and each week he gets a question, and he answers the questions. And then at the end of the year, I get a book of all of those answers. And it's a gorgeous way to capture the beauty of your family and wisdom. And one of the things he said about parenting, because it was something about a question about watching your kids, taking care of them, making sure to rear them kind of thing. And he said, it's not so much about watching your kids, it's knowing that your kids are watching you. And that's something that we tend to forget in life. It's that even if we think nobody is watching us, our energy comes onto that altar of life. And everyone gets to experience it. So what is everyone experiencing from us? Whether we're conscious of it or not, whether we like it or we don't, what are they experiencing and what are we bringing to each moment? Are we bringing our peace? Have we done our work? Are we doing our process? Or are we bringing our pollution and our toxicity and laying it upon the altar? Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul and Living Untethered, shared this, and I think it is my very favorite sentence from the whole book. He said, "The highest life you can live is when every single moment that passes before you is better off because it did." The highest life you can live is when every single moment that passes before you is better off because it did. Now that seems like a high goal to attain, doesn't it? Doesn't give us much space to be human. But with the practice and with awareness, I think we can get pretty close. Can the moment, we think about it often as people, as the people that pass before me, are the people that have known me better off in their life because they know me, right? But what about the moment? What about this moment that is before us, in this time and space, in this creation, co-creation that we call life, in this world, in this spiritual community, in your family, in your own being, as far as the moment you're feeling, your emotions, your thoughts, all of it. Is it better off because it passed before you? Well, that depends on who the you is, doesn't it? Is it the you that is the Christ presence, the awakened, the anointed, the aware one within? Or is it you, the ego mind, the sense of separation itself, the one that has self-esteem issues or these issues or those issues or anger issues or whatever it is? Is the moment passing before that one? Or can we get to the place that the moment is passing before the one? The I am nature. Because that's the practice of peace. The practice of peace is about stepping back enough to become the witness behind everything that can allow the moment to pass through. I put together, and this was a project that Reverend Brenda gave us before if you were here for Q&A Sunday, just give a little hand wave, right? So Q&A Sunday for a minister like me, can be like, oh, I can do something Saturday night. Like usually Saturday nights are like, no, not me, thanks, I'll skip that. But Q&A Sunday, it's like, I can do something Saturday night, because one of my gifts is being able to talk you could say something, we talk, right? It's just comfortable. That's not everyone's, and Fillmore wrote out his talks, Eric Butterworth wrote out every words of his talks, and that's a gift because they were incredible. But for me, it's like Q&A Sunday does not give me anxiety, it gives me like a little excitement, so I'm like, yeah, I could go out to dinner on Saturday night. But this particular Saturday night, Reverend Brenda said, let's each pick out our favorite lines from each section. Now, there are a lot of chapters in this book, and there are 8 sections. And my book is full of highlights and pen marks and Post-it notes. I just gave my book to my sister. Raise your hand if you gave your book out. Did you give your book away already? Good job. I was even thinking this morning of like, oh, I did give my book away, and there's one piece that I wanted to find for this Sunday, and I have to just pull it right out of my heart because I gave my book away. I gave actually both books away to my sister, my brand new sister-in-law from Thanksgiving, and my sister. But in those books, we started going through the quotes. And Brenda, we have very different, if you know Reverend Brenda, we have very different styles in so many ways. And one of hers is like, one of her gifts is great focus. So she takes this book and she's like, let's start. We sit by the little fireplace, we're cozied in, and she's like, let's start. And one from each, not each chapter, each section, Greg. So we start looking, and she's like, I'm on 2, I'm on 3. And in the meantime, me, who's very different, I'm like, so I start going through it, and I'm like, that one's so good, that one's so good. These ones from these chapters are so good. You know what, I bet you guys, someone's going to ask me after for these quotes. I better write them down because someone's going to want them. I know, I'm going to share one, and someone's going to say, could I have that quote? So I get out my computer, and I start typing them in, and I'm trying to type in only my favorite, but then there are a few choices, so I need to put down all my choices. And then I'm like looking at them, and I'm like, You know what would be even better, though, is just like at some point we're going to have to get all the best quotes from the entire book. And she's like going, I'm on 4. What are you on? I'm like, almost 1. Almost done with 1. And so I'm going through, and then I'm like, okay, I'll put that project on my to-do list. And then I'm being realistic with myself and going, you'll never get back to that if you put it on your to-do list. You'll never get back to it. And they're gonna love it on Sunday. We could put it on the app on Sunday. And so I just keep going. So anyway, I ended up with about 50 quotes. And she had her 8 in a very good period of time, and I think I stayed up till 1 a.m., and I loved it, right? I loved it. I chewed it up. I was very much at peace with my process. But I want to share with you a little paragraph, and it's not said exactly in the way Singer said it, because these are a whole bunch of different quotes that are put together about today's Sunday and peace. And this is only a minuscule portion of the document that you can find on the app under OOS if you would like to download that. Michael Singer. What's it like in there? You suffer when the moment in front of you is not the way you want. You rejoice when it matches your preferences. One of the most amazing things you will ever realize is that the moment in front of you is not bothering you. You are bothering yourself about the moment in front of you. What is in front of you is a very holy thing. All of it. Every single moment in front of you took billions of years with everything happening exactly like it did to manifest as it is. You are being given a unique show that took billions of years to create. It's right in front of you and you're complaining about it. It's hard to let some experiences just pass through without residual disturbance, but you need to learn how to do it. Fully allow reality to pass directly into the highest part of your being. When you commit to spiritual growth, you work on letting go of the stored blockages from the past and not storing any more from the present. The truth is, life is not hitting your weak spots. You are projecting your weak spots onto life. Use everything to let go of what stands between you and the God-realized state. The highest life you can live is when every single moment that passes before you is better off because it did. Right? So can we engage in that practice? Can we create peace from the inside out? The temptation is to think that in order to have peace, everything outside of us needs to be calm. Everything outside of us needs to match our preferences. Everything outside of us needs to be okay. Everything needs to be fixed. Yeah? I was at a Unity service in Overland Park during my sabbatical time. I had a Sunday off that I was in town, and for a Rev, that's like a cool and unique thing. So I thought, where do I want to go? Do I want to check out the Church of the Resurrection? Do I want to check out this center, that center, whatever? And I thought, I'm going to go see Reverend Jackie over at Unity of Overland Park. And that Sunday that I was there was a unique day. It wasn't like a sermon, really. It was a community day, and they were talking about diversity, and they were talking about the uniqueness of each of us. And they had a guest that was sharing, 2 guests, in fact, that were from the deaf community. And this service was dedicated to awakening, understanding, communicating about uniquenesses and special abilities. And the woman shared that in the deaf community that she grew up in generational deafness. So there were kids that were born that aren't deaf, and most of the people in the families were deaf through the line. And she said that when a child is born into her family, because she, had a lot of support and a lot of knowingness that there was nothing wrong, that it was just a uniqueness that she could not hear. But she said that when a child is born into their family line, if the child is deaf, and they find that out when they're born, there is a celebration. There's an acknowledgement that they're going to get to pass down their family legacy, their history, their learning to this beautiful, perfect creation, this beautiful child. And there's excitement there. Think about that perspective. Think about that view of radical wholeness. That rather than what someone else may experience of one circumstance, one condition, one expression of God, and to someone else, and this is no judgment on anyone's experience, we all come with our samskaras, we all come with the human condition and the processing, but to someone that could be devastating, and to another it's celebrated. Where does that show us our power is? In the outside conditions or inside? Inside. A celebration. She went on to talk about her experience, her early experiences with churches, and how even churches that would, be accepting and accommodating and all of this, she said then they would also pray for her and pray for her healing and pray for her ears to be fixed and her to be able to hear and circle around her and put hands on her thinking, she could be able to hear, and shared a story that one time there was even, so much going on with their, maybe speaking in tongues or chanting or whatever it was, that there was a vibration, and so she opened her eyes because she could feel the vibration, and they were like, she heard, all excited. But she had such a strength within, such a peace within, such a wholeness within, that it just allowed her to feel a little sorry for those people, to feel a little sad for them. It didn't tear her apart that they thought there was something wrong that needed to be healed, that they were asking God, Jesus, whatever it is, to come in and fix her. She knew herself and she knew who she was. She was born into a family of radical acceptance, wholeness, and love at such a deep level that it was like, oh, that's cute or funny or interesting. But people with special abilities in our world, in any places where there are differences, we're in a space where there are differences, whether they're cultural, whether they're ethnic, whether they're physical, whether they're emotional, whatever it is, where there are differences, there's not always acceptance, is there? There's not always an experience of radical wholeness, and this disturbs peace, yeah? Until we learn to accept ourselves just as we are, fully and completely, we haven't done the inner work to create that acceptance on the outside. Now, this season of Advent, if you know about traditional Advent, this season is the season to be building up the energy of welcoming. Celebrating the birth of Jesus is one piece of that. So it's welcoming the baby Jesus, welcoming the celebration. But that's only half of it. The second piece is about celebrating the Christ and what's commonly known as the second coming. Are you ready to talk about the second coming? Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, says this in one of the recent articles published by Unity. It says, Unity has historically viewed the season of Advent as an inner search of mind and heart. Co-founder Charles Fillmore spoke of Unity and Advent in a January 24th, 1923, 100 years ago, radio broadcast called Christ's Mind, the Second Coming of Christ. He shared his thoughts on his understanding that Christ is an idea in divine mind and highlighted the universality of Christ, the divine essence that dwells in every human being. Like the idea of mathematics or music or any of the exact sciences, there is an idea of a perfect Christ in divine mind. You can think of it as the I am nature. You can think of it as your true self. You can think of it as your higher self. It doesn't matter what name you give it. It doesn't have self-confidence problems. You can call it anything or you can call it nothing. Charles Fillmore didn't say that. He told the audience that he was speaking to, Fillmore said, people with preconceived human notions of the second coming are bound to be disillusioned. They are simply looking in the wrong place to discover the Advent, he said. Once you understand the spiritual character of Christ's second coming, he said, then you find Christ within yourself. So what this Advent time is about, it's about you. It's about me. The idea of peace this Sunday isn't just a cheeky word, isn't just an idea, isn't just something that we pray for to happen in the world. It's something that we pray to be developed and awakened within us so that we can presence the world from a place of peace, because the world is co-created from this projection that each of us has within us into the outer that then cooperates together. So what happens when we don't have peace? We tend to pass it on, like pollution, like toxicity, putting it on the altar of learning, consumption, and demonstration. We showcase it. Peace is huge, and we can all feel it when it's missing, yeah? Have you met someone that has peace even when their life looks like there's no reason they should be peaceful? Yeah. The work has to be done from the inside out. Then, from that inner space of peace, outer alignment is possible. Whenever I do weddings, I always include this part that talks about the wisdom of being the one to take the first step back. When there's an argument or a problem, it's like, be the one to take the first step back into the witness consciousness. I have a beloved friend who is a little person, which that is the official name that most people like to go with, that includes dwarfism. And I went to high school with him and college with him, and he did a TED Talk, and it was incredible. I saw the TED Talk, and maybe I'll post it into our Facebook community group so it can be shared. And he went on after college to get married and have children, and he has a beautiful family, and they're all little people. And in his TED Talk, and it wasn't like a churchy thing, but I was like, go Ethan, because it really was. But he gave a talk on his wholeness, his perfection, and that of his people. And the idea that it's not something that's a problem, it's not something that we need to get rid of, that it's something to be celebrated, a uniqueness, a specialness to be celebrated. And it was an incredible talk. And I want to share with you from another beloved friend, one of my classmates that I was in ministerial school with. And you all had the blessing, if you were here in the sanctuary while I was away on sabbatical, of getting to hear Reverend Joy Weiler. She also is a little person. And she gave a talk while I was gone, and I learned that she was coming back to Unity Village this year, and I was so excited. She was in the class ahead of me, and she was probably the biggest powerhouse as far as when I called her to see if she could speak here and that she was coming back, because I kind of did a double take. What? She's moving back to Kansas City? Yes, we have another amazing speaker that we get to experience, another amazing Unity Rev. And so when I called her to see if she would speak, she said yes. And I said, I still remember the title of your talk from 2004. And it's the only talk title from ministerial school that I remember. And it's the only, there's one other Christmas talk that was just, if I could have it, I would just read it to you all every Christmas. But other than that, it was the one talk, and it was titled When Pigs Fly. And I was sitting there talking to her, and she's like, yeah, I have that one. And I was thinking of pulling that back out and doing something with it. I'm like, you should, make it into a book or something. It was so good, When Pigs Fly. So we had the good grace of being able to have her speak to us. But I want to share with you something about her beginnings that I didn't even know until I read this article that was published by Unity. And Reverend Joy Weiler said this: I was born with a rare form of dwarfism in the 1950s in small-town southern Missouri. The doctors told my parents I was too deformed to survive and discouraged them from holding me to avoid getting too attached. It's good to go ahead and feel your heart there. I was isolated in the back of the nursery until I was 3 days old. When my daddy demanded to take his perfect baby girl home to love as long as he had her. I survived quite nicely. She goes on in the article to share a biblical story and the metaphysics of it, and I'll share with you just this piece. She says, to perceive ourselves as powerful creations of the divine is clear sight. To have ears to hear is to be able to discern the truth and apply it to our lives. To take up our mat is to take those confident actions that shine our spiritual light in the world. We move beyond any judgment of physical difficulties or deformity, and that's in quotes, to accept that spiritual wholeness may express through each one of us in ways we cannot measure or discern from the outside. She titled this work Radical Wholeness, and has lived her life with radical wholeness. She is an attorney. She is an advocate for animals, an advocate for humans. She is a unity minister. I mean, incredible, and one of the most powerful people. Powerful speakers. Powerful women, powerful mothers that I've known. What I didn't know about her, I mean, I should have known this because I knew she had kids, but she had one beautiful little baby girl, Sarah, that passed when she was just newly born after being here for just a little bit. And then she adopted 2 beautiful children from India and was a single mom. Now, she is someone that I experience to have peace in her heart. You tell me how much peace you would feel. In our culture today, if you were a little person, single mom with 2 adopted little kids from India, having experienced the experience she had before that, navigating, being a lawyer, navigating, being in the Midwest, navigating, being a unity minister, navigating all of that. Peace in her heart. She goes on to close the article with these words. My daddy may not have known at the time, but this is exactly the radical wholeness he declared for me the day he and my mother plucked me from the bassinet in the back of the hospital nursery and took me home. Radical wholeness is my birthright. It's everyone's birthright. Jesus was born of a humble means. Born in a culture at a time, if we look historically, which he could have been discounted, cast out as not enough, not from the right people, not from the right circumstances, not whole enough, not godly enough, not regal enough, fill in the blank. But he was born to a mother who was given word of his wholeness, perfection, and godliness. We all will have reasons to doubt this in ourselves and in others. Advent is our time to act as if it is true within each of us and within everyone in our world, so that we can bring forth the second coming of the Christ, which is the I am nature that exists within each one of us. Amen? This bulletin is what I got yesterday from Reverend Joy Weiler's memorial service. She just very recently in November made her transition and lifted off into her freedom forum under the age of 70 years old. Her beautiful daughter got up and spoke and shared with power, you could tell that she is her mother's daughter and that she knows about radical wholeness. So are we going to, with this life that we have and this life that we live, with this moment of life, are we going to let go of the story that there is anything, any reason, any experience, any history, any emotion, any circumstance, any outer condition that can take our wholeness from us? Or are we going to live in radical wholeness and practice peace? Namaste.